Now we're good.
Hi, don't do it again. Carnivores. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Oh Hello Living. Today we are talking about Darwin's Choice, a game where you create animals that mutate and migrate across different biomes in order to become Darwin's Choice. So I'm going to go through how the game is played and then come back here to give you my thoughts and opinions on Darwin's Choice. The goal of Darwin's Choice is to be the player with the most Darwin's points at the end of the game. The game consists of 4 rounds called eras, and each era is consisted of 3 phases. First phase is the action phase, which players create, mutate, or migrate their animals. The second phase is evaluation. This determines which animals become extinct, which eat, and which get eaten. The more successful your animal is, the more Darwin points you'll get. In the third transition phase, event cards such as Ice Age or Flood, as well as new biome cards are drawn, which completely reshape the next era. All of the various cards are laid out in the middle of the table, and you want to lay them vertically because as you play the game, a bunch of animals will start to spread out and you really need all of the room. Depending on the number of players will determine how many biome cards you lay out around this row of cards. Continental chips are then placed randomly next to the biome cards, and then you lay out the amount of food needed for each of the biomes based on the bottom left corner of the biome card. Next to the name of the biome is a number that correlates to the number of Darwin points an animal species gains when it wins that biome. There is a set of requirements in the bottom right corner of the card that animals must have in order to survive. So it must be able to swim or fly. Plus, it also sometimes has requirements of things it cannot have. So like this one, you cannot have heat resistance. In the center of the biome card are adaptations. The species with the most adaptations that fit the biome will receive the continental chip to be scored out later. Players can decide whether or not to set up a trade zone that has 2 or more animal cards than the number of players in the game. Half of the cards should be the large cards, and the other half should be the small cards. Every player will receive some reference cards, as well as player marker chips that will help identify their animals. Players will take turns selecting their choice of 10 animal cards. These cards range from bodies, legs, heads, and tails. Players can choose any combination of cards from the 2 decks, but the smaller deck has heads, tails, wings, and single feet, while the larger deck has bodies and sets of 2 feet. The animal cards all contain docking sites for various animal body parts. Players are only required to have a head and a body to create a species, but a more complex species will have more abilities. The total number of hearts on all of the cards of the species indicates the required amount of food for that species, which is shown with a leaf or a meat symbol. So this animal has 3 hearts and is a plant-eating animal, so it would get 3 food. If an animal has a special ability icon on the bottom of one of their cards, it means that the animal cannot be eaten by another predator. The rulebook goes into more detail about what all the symbols mean for reference. The player that has been appointed Game Master receives the first player marker and starts the game. During their turn, players choose between 2 additional actions and 1 of 3 main actions. Players have the option to redraw all but one of their card from their hands, and they also have the option to trade. If the trade zone has been set up, players can exchange one of their cards with another card in the trade zone. If there isn't a trade zone, players can trade animal cards with fellow players. In the action phase, any additional actions are optional, but all players must perform one of 3 main actions. They can either create an animal, migrate the animal, or mutate the animal. In animal creation, a species is placed in one of the biomes with its various body part names, all facing horizontally. The animal only needs a head and a body, and it can be incomplete when placed down. So this one has a docking spot for wings, but it doesn't necessarily need those to be played. The animal is immediately given food from the biome based on the number of hearts it has. If all the food chips have been taken, food is removed from animals in the same biome that have a lower adaptation score. So that is based on the number of flying or swimming ability in this particular biome. Animal species can only be placed in biomes in which they have enough food from the food chips or eating other animals, and they meet the biome requirements. A player marker is set checkmarked side up on top of the animal to indicate the animal has been interacted with in this era. After the first era ends, players can choose to mutate their animals during their action phase. They can either remove a card, add a card, or replace a card. So for this guy, I'm going to add these albatross wings. There's also an option to double mutate, but that's going to cost you 3 Darwin points. Players can also choose to migrate their animal during their action phase. Any food or continental chips that the animal may have had in its previous biomes are left behind as the animal migrates to a new biome. Once all players have taken their action, the evaluation phase begins. Species are first checked to see if they meet the requirements of the biome. So these guys need to be able to either swim or fly. So both of these animals fit the requirements. If they happen to not fit the requirements, the species dies out immediately and the player receives 1 Darwin point that sits in front of them until the end of the game. Next, the food is evaluated to see which species can eat, which get eaten, and which die. Herbivores and omnivores with enough food chips survive, so these two are able to survive. Carnivores who did not have enough food chips can eat 1 or more of the surviving herbivores or omnivores, unless they have one of those special abilities. This will help the carnivores cover their food requirement. If an animal has enough food to survive in the biome, it is awarded 1 Darwin point that is placed on the animal. The most adapted species in each biome that is marked with the continental chip receives the number of Darwin points shown in the upper right corner of the biome card. So this elephant tuna albatross gets 2 Darwin points. If there happens to be a tie, the species with more hearts wins, but if they tie again, they both are awarded the Darwin points. Animals are also scored across all the biomes for competitive strength. The most competitive species, marked by these little trophies, receives the golden competition chip for 3 points. The second, of course, gets 2 points, and the third gets 1 point. Before the next era and round of turns begins, there is a transition phase. First, an event card is selected, and any with an instant effect are dealt with immediately, and those with permanent effects impact the entire next era. So this event is a flood. So any animals that cannot climb, swim, or fly die out immediately. If an event card affects one biome in particular, one of the continental cards are drawn to see which biome is affected. Depending on the number of players, a certain number of new biome cards are drawn, and continental cards are drawn to determine which biomes are going to be replaced. So if we flip over this one, it's the coastline, and it's going to replace this biome. So this biome card is discarded, and the coastline replaces it. Once biomes have been reassigned, food supply is adjusted and then redistributed to the existing animal species in each biome according to their adaptation. The continental chip is then placed next to the most adaptable species within the new biome. So this coast biome is actually quite similar to the previous island biome. So there's not much that needs to be changed in regards to food, and they all have the same requirements. So if these requirements were different, these species would either have to mutate or migrate in their next turn. All player markers are turned to the side without a check mark. The first player marker moves counterclockwise. Each player then replenishes their existing hand back up to 10 cards. All cards in the trade zone are also refreshed. The game ends after the 4th era and the final evaluation phase. Players add up all of their Darwin points from living and extinct species, and the player or players with the most points win. I love Darwin's Choice because the colors and the artwork are amazing. There's just something really fun about creating a dolphin, zebra, giraffe that flies that really makes my childhood heart like super excited. If you really like rule-heavy, detail-oriented games, this one is definitely for you. And there's still a lot of replayability because the biomes change all the time and you can create different animals each era. There are links below in the description to find out where you can purchase this game if you are interested. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and leave in the comments your thoughts and opinions about Darwin's Choice, as well as any future games you want me to review. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!